Hello everyone. Welcome to this digital learning platform of Department of College Education, Karnataka LMS. Today in this video, we are going to discuss continued part of As You Like It by Shakespeare. In this video, we'll take up the discussion of act-wise summary of the play. As we know, As You Like It is a famous comedy written by Shakespeare. It's a comedy because it follows Shakespearean comic tradition of introducing a conflict in the play and resolution of the conflict at the end with the happy union of the lovers. Because of the happy union of the lovers, it's also a romantic comedy, as the play is set in the pastoral world of the rustic atmosphere of the Forest of Arden. It is also a pastoral comedy. When come to the setting of the play is set basically in two places. The first part of the play opens in the Duke Frederick's court, the setting of the town or city, the court. When we come to know that Duke Senior was in exile as he was banished by Duke Frederick. To know more about Duke Senior, we travel to the second setting which dominates throughout the play, that is the setting of the Forest of Arden. The Forest of Arden is the pastoral setting because it is there amidst of the shepherds as well, and it's a setting which captures the rustic beauty in contrast with the phoniness of the court life. So Shakespeare, by using two setting, makes a kind of contrast between the both and invites, or rather I can say presents a debate about the both. Yes, the play has main characters such as Duke Senior, who is in exile by being dethroned by his brother, the younger Duke, Duke Ferdinand. But Duke Ferdinand allowed Duke Senior's daughter Rosalind to stay with his daughter Celia at the court. That's why we have Rosalind and Celia, the other two female characters. And we are also introduced to Roland D. Boyce. He is a friend of Duke Senior, whose sons Orlando, who is the youngest of Sir Roland D's youngest son of Roland D. Boyce, and his elder brother Oliver, and he has also a second brother named Jacques. The other characters in the play are Adam. He is actually a servant to Oliver but a friend to Orlando, and we have another servant to Oliver named Dennis. And the most important character again is Touchstone, the court fool. He's a court fool there, and a wrestler named Duke Ferdinand's court's wrestler named Charles, and we have Jacques, Amiens, then First Lord, Second Lord. These are all the lords attending Duke Senior in exile. And we also have Sylvius and Phoebe, two lovers in two shepherds. Sylvius is a shepherd and Phoebe is a shepherdess, are in love with each other. And we have a Corin named a person named Corin. He's a shepherd who helps Rosalind when she to settle in the Forest of Arden. She travels or she flees to the forest of Arden as Ganymede, and she is helped by Corin. And we have a Touchstone's lover named Adri, a goat keeper, and we have William, who is in love with Adri. Thus, these are some of the important other characters in the play. Uh, the plot of the play is actually Duke Ferdinand banished his brother Duke Senior, and Duke Senior is in exile in the forest of Arden in the peaceful atmosphere of the rustic pastoral world. Here at the court, Oliver, son of Roland de Bois, plots to injure his younger brother Orlando by using the court wrestler Charles in a fight. But Orlando wins the match with Charles, fight with Charles, and wins the heart of Rosalind, also receives appreciation from her. When Ferdinand comes to know about Rosalind's appreciation to Orlando, who is the son of a friend of Duke Senior, Ferdinand orders or directs Rosalind to leave the court. She disguises herself as Ganymede and flees to the forest of Arden, but with Ferdinand's own daughter Celia, and it is Touchstone who accompanies them. So, this is the plot and the resolution of different love stories at the end, and a happy ending with the union of all lovers is the plot of the play. So, naturally, the dominant theme of the play is love at its various phases. We can see a realistic love between Touchstone and Edry. We can see pastoral love between Sylvius and Phoebe. We also see a romantic love between Orlando and Rosalind. Similarly, we have another love story of Oliver and Celia. Thus, love is the basic theme. Along with that, we have the contrast between the country life and the town or the court life. A debate is posed on those two things. And then we have the transformation and adjustment as another theme, because the character Ferdinand and Oliver at the end of the play gets transformed from wickedness to good behavior, wise behavior, and the transformation and getting adjusted to the situation is another theme. And the signature theme, I can say, of Shakespeare, that is reconciliation, forgiveness and reconciliation, is also at operation in the play. Let's go to the act-wise summary of the play. So in the act 1, there are 5 acts in the play, as most of the, just like most of the Shakespeare's plays, which almost all of the plays have only 5 acts. Similarly, this play has 5 acts. Among the 5 acts, in the act 1, we see Orlando, we are introduced to, because the act 1 opens with the discussion between the dialogue of Orlando and the conversation between Orlando and Adam. Actually, Adam is a servant of Oliver and he's a good friend of Orlando. And the conversation between Orlando and Adam, we come to know about the ill treatment of Orlando by his elder brother Oliver, who is jealous of Orlando. Then we find Oliver's plan to injure Orlando. Before that, we see Orlando challenges the court wrestler Charles to a fight, for a fight. At that moment, Orlando tells Charles to injure harm. Oliver tells Charles to injure Orlando in the fight. So, accordingly, the fight takes place. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Duke Frederick, who overthrew Duke Senior, who had overthrown Duke Senior recently, and allowed Rosalind to remain with Celia because she is a good friend of Celia. So, when the match was scheduled, all these, in the sense, Rosalind, Duke Frederick, Celia, all these watched the fight between Orlando and Charles. In the fight, it's not Oliver, Orlando overthrows Charles in the match to be victorious. He wins the match. He also wins the heart of Rosalind because Rosalind admires Orlando and gives him a chain to wear. In turn, Orlando becomes overcome with her love. He developed his romantic love to Rosalind at that moment. It seems here that Orlando won the match against Charles, but he defeated to the love of Rosalind. Thus, the first act clears the foreground of introducing all the important characters and the conflict. One of the conflict here is that the younger Duke, that is Duke Ferdinand, had overthrown Duke Senior. That has created the conflict in the play. So the whole setting of the act first is in the court of Duke Ferdinand. When we move on to the act second, here Orlando comes to know about Oliver's plot to kill him using Charles from Adam. That means it is Adam who tells Orlando that he has danger. Having learned this, Orlando flees to the forest of Arden and seeks refuge with the exiled Duke. That's how partially the shift from the court setting to the setting of the forest of Arden starts here. When Duke Ferdinand learned that Rosalind has admirations for Orlando is the son of Rolandi Boys, Sir Rolandi Boys, who is a friend of Duke Senior, Duke Ferdinand banishes Rosalind, considering that as a traitor, as a role of a traitor. That means she's acted against the kingdom. It was no known cause, but Duke Ferdinand perceives act of Rosalind is not a right one. So for this reason, Rosalind decided to seek shelter in the forest of Arden. She disguises herself as Ganymede. But her friend Celia, who is actually the daughter of Duke Ferdinand, accompanies her. She disguises herself as Eliana. So, both disguise themselves, Rosalind as a young man, Ganymede, and Celia as his shepherdess sister, Eliana. They wanted somebody to accompany, therefore they attracted Touchstone to be with them. He is the court fool who also goes with them to the forest of Arden. With the flight of these characters from the court to the forest of Arden, second act makes the shift in the setting from the court to the setting of the forest of Arden. When come to the act 3, Duke Ferdinand commands Oliver to find Orlando. He lost his daughter also, that is Celia. He wanted only Rosalind to go exile, but he lost his daughter Celia with her. This made him think Orlando the cause behind all this. Therefore, he commands Oliver to find Orlando. In his conversation to Oliver, he makes a remarks that Oliver is not good at his deeds. But the irony of the situation is that Duke Frederick, while talking to Oliver, says that what deeds he do are not good, but Duke himself does all those things. So Rosalind and Celia, in disguise in the forest of Arden, purchase a plot of land. They had the help of the character Corin. With the help of that shepherd, they purchase plot of land, and with sheets of poetry there. Before going to that, you see a little cottage is built, and a small herd of sheep was tended or initiated, and they settled down in the forest. At that moment, we also find Rosalind finds that the trees in the forest are all covered with sheets of poetry, but to her surprise, those poems are dedicated to her only. Remember, she finds those lines as Ganymede, not as Rosalind, because she is disguised as Ganymede in the forest of Arden. On learning the author of these is Orlando, she meets him in disguise. That is, she is in the dress of Ganymede. And there she comes to know about the love sickness of Orlando, because he had lost Rosalind, and at that moment she, as Ganymede, offers a cure to him, that she would cure his problem, his love sickness. Though acting as Ganymede in the attire of a male, she responds to the feelings of Orlando. Here, the traces of love started blossoming in Orlando also. I'm sorry, not just in Orlando, but also in Rosalind. The love towards Orlando blossomed in Rosalind as she learns Orlando's love to her. The true romantic love is showed here. When we come to Act 4, the author here even shifts other characters to the Forest of Arden. We find Oliver, who was assigned the task of finding Orlando, reaches the Forest of Arden. He finds Ganymede. In his meeting with Ganymede, we can say tells her, but tell him, because it is Ganymede who is in male attire. He tells him that Orlando saved him from the death by rescuing him from a poisonous snake bite and a lion's attack. We find here the concept of forgiveness and reconciliation. Orlando was ill treated in the beginning of the play by Oliver, but when Oliver is in threat in the forest, it is he who rescues, saves him. By becoming a savior of Oliver's life, he becomes a glorious, he becomes, or he lies in a glorious light, and he is further attracted to Rosalind. We find Rosalind, by this hearing this, is overcome with her feelings of love for Orlando. She thinks of his well-being. She therefore decides that it is time to end everything. She wanted to conclude. She wanted to reveal her true identity, no longer act herself as Ganymede, and hide her real identity through the pretense. Therefore, we find the disguised Ganymede, that is Rosalind, is now set her mind to resolve the complexities of the plot. In the meantime, we find Oliver quickly falls in love with Eliana, that is actually Celia, the daughter of the Duke Ferdinand. And we have another love story of Touchstone, who chases off William allowed to love a goat keeper named Adri. The love story between Touchstone and Adri is in contrast with that of the love story between Orlando and Rosalind, or even Silvius and Phoebe, because the latter's love story is of romantic love, which is of imagination, poems, and all that you saw, whereas Touchstone's love story is a very realistic one, who do not think of anything of that sort, imagination. That is evident from his dialogues. And in Act 5, the last act of the play, we find the fight of the best men from the court caused lot of worry to the Duke Frederick. Duke Frederick found that people of his court are forming an alliance in the forest of Arden, and this naturally made him to step out of the court to the forest of Arden. But what makes Shakespeare's comedies very interesting is the sudden shift or transformation in the behavior of wicked people. One example is of Duke Ferdinand. When he enters the forest of Arden, he goes to a hermitage. By meeting him, he gets transformed into a wise or a good person. There we find Rosalind again, disguised as Ganymede, promises to resolve the problems of everyone, because the complexity of the plot is reached its zenith at this point of the play. She decides to resolve everything, and she resolves it by changing her male attire and reveals her real identity. She appears suddenly as herself, that is, as Rosalind, and arranges the weddings of different pairs. Thus, the play ends happily with the weddings of all pairs, that is, the wedding of Oliver and Celia, Orlando and Rosalind, and Silvius and Phoebe, the two Shepherd lovers, Shepherd Silvius and Shepherdess Phoebe. And we have the other pair that is already in wedlock, Touchstone and Touchstone and Adri. Right? The rightful Duke finally regains the power. Here you find forgiveness and reconciliation. He is returned to the court. But interestingly, in all these lines, in all these developments, we have that important character Jacques, a faithful lord to Duke Senior, who presents a lot of philosophy, particularly his philosophy of melancholy, who, unlike all others, decided to stay at the forest of Arden itself. There we find the celebration of his melancholy also. Thus, the play is a well structured play with a very planned, very good plot, which reveals the mastery and comic genius of Shakespeare as a playwright. It's one of the perfect comedies of Shakespeare, which introduces the adversities of life, amuses the audience with humor and satire, but ends in resolving all the complications to become a perfect comedy. So thus the play As You Like It is the best example of Shakespeare's good comedy, wonderful comedy. You can access the textbook, the textual part of the script of the play here in John Russell Brown's book, and it is also available in the description below a link to the PDF file of the play available online is there. You can click on that and access the play. Thank you for watching. I anticipate you to the next part, which will be the further discussion of the play. Thank you for watching.